Welcome back to another triathlon podcast brought to you by Mauna Apparel. This week, we're going to have some fun. You may have heard us at the start of every single podcast episode here saying sponsored by Mauna Apparel. And this week, we've got a couple guys on who kind of know the brand from the inside out. We've got co-founders Gonzalo and Philip on the podcast today. And we're also going to jump into some insights in the triathlon world right now with some massive change-ups with Supertri and some announcements from world champions. First, let's say hi to our crew. We got Josh and Fed, but let's introduce Gonzalo and Philip. Let's start with you. Gonzalo, how are you doing these days?
Hi, Jenna. Everything's great. Thank you. Thank you for having us. Yeah, looking forward to talking a little bit more about, the journey that it's been to be on this crazy roller coaster. But yeah, it's been a lot of learning and it's been amazing.
Awesome. Absolutely. And you'll see another familiar face there. Philip, how are you doing these days?
I'm pretty good. I'm feeling pretty fatigued this week. I'm racing next week, so I guess it's how it should feel before you start tapering down. Like a lot of people say, I dedicate myself to training, and then every now and then I make a few shirts and tri suits. So this is my side job, I guess, according to a lot of people. Yeah, I'm excited to race next week in 70.3 El Salvador. It's the first time they do it there, so in a country I've never been, so should be fun. And a lot of work here in the office this week. So all good here.
That's fantastic. Always good to have a triathlon as an excuse to travel to a new country and just see it that way. Well, let's jump
100%.
in with some quick updates with Josh and Fed. Josh, how are you going these days?
I am not in my taper yet, but I'm going to try the reverse taper.
Yeah.
Since I'm just now building up the miles. Did about an 8-mile long run. I got 11 coming up this weekend, and then Tokyo will be 2 weeks out from that. So as healthy as I can be, though. And I just put in some crazy bike mileage over the last few weeks and swim and did a short little 4-mile run today. That was like one of the best heart rate runs I've ever had. So we're fit. We're just going to see how fast that fitness turns into on a marathon route. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm just enjoyed the training block, and it's been fun to tinker with it and not do a traditional marathon block. So that'll still to come, I guess.
Man, the countdown is on towards Tokyo. That's coming up crazy fast, it feels like.
Yeah, real fast. It's we leave in 2 weeks. Like I'll be heading to the airport about this time 2 weeks from now, and then we'll leave Monday night, spend a night in Seattle, and then leave Seattle Tuesday, get to Tokyo on Wednesday. So long day, but breaking it up.
Definitely. How about you, Fed? What's going on in your world?
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a reverse taper as well as Josh. A bit of a reverse taper / panic training because I'm racing 2 weeks now in Challenge Wanaka down in New Zealand. So yeah, I'm doing all the classic panic training. Let me get as fit as I can in a couple of days. So yeah, I just did a half marathon this morning on the treadmill. All good. So maybe tomorrow I'll do like a 3-hour bike ride and an hour run and then keep doing that until the body breaks or I can survive the race.
There you go. That's one way to get it done. And definitely stay tuned at the end of this episode. Fed did an interview with the Challenge Wanaka race director. So if you want to hear lots more about that race, go check it out afterwards. On my end, I'm getting back into training a little bit-ish. It took like a week or so completely off after the craziness that was the Samla 100 and just got back into my first long bike ride, 3 hours on the trainer in the basement. And I'm ready for outdoor ride season, but it's probably another 3-4 months here. So I am looking forward to getting away for the Team Mauna camp here and come out 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's coming up fast, but looking forward to getting outside there with a few of these guys. Philip, sounds like you guys were over there with Rod checking out some of the rides that we'll be doing over at the camp. Can you tell us a little bit about, what we'll be doing over there?
Yeah, we did quite a few. We did a long ride to scout the long ride we'll be doing on Saturday probably. I've done a few rides from Scottsdale because Josh, I know you're familiar with Psychologic and Park who works there. He's my fitter. So I go there pretty much every year at the beginning of the season to get fitted and update whatever I'm tweaking on my current bike, or in this case, the new Ventum. So obviously had to go before the start of the season. Not ideal 2 weeks before a race, but I mean, I didn't have another option with a new bike. Yeah, it was really good. And I've done a few short rides to check the fit from the store, but never really done a few longer rides. So it's nice to really scout out the area and make sure we're very familiar with everything we'll be doing. And there's some great rides, great scenery. You know how it is, like deserts, lots of cactus. Pretty similar to Tucson. The air is super dry. So, you know, you need to make sure that like all my lips now are like cut and my knuckles. So you need to make sure to take a lot of lotion and moisturizer. But yeah, it's great riding. The temperature is amazing. Pretty similar to California. If you ask me, I go with California any day though. I think the weather here, like yesterday was 80. So, you know, that's
Ridiculous.
winter here. It's just like you can't beat it because again, like every time I go to the desert for me, especially like it's not too high, but coming from sea level, you can still feel it. And then the air is dry. Like me and Rod were both like, oh, I have a headache, so you need to hydrate more. And it's like, it's not crazy high. Like, I want to say it's like 1,300, no, less, maybe like 1,200. But it's enough to feel it coming from sea level with the dryness, right? But it's going to be a great day. You know, there's amazing pools and there's some really great trail running. So it should be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a number of coaches going out there so we can support athletes of all ability levels, which is kind of fun bringing the team together. And correct me if I'm wrong, people can still sign up for the camp here. There's just no apparel
Yeah.
included, but they can still
There's no
come join.
apparel.
Sounds
And
good.
talking
Yeah.
about that, this is the first time we're doing, because we're launching our winter collection. So this camp includes like long bibs, like long tight bibs and a windbreaker. This is the first time we include this in the camp package, aside from the jersey and the run singlet. And I'm actually a little worried about that because it was hot. Like we never used any windbreaker or we're just wearing normal bib shorts. So I think it might be a little bit too much, but I guess for like you, Jen, or even like if Josh were to come, if he goes back home, like in Boston, it's still going to be cold for a few months. So it's like, at least you get to keep that, right?
Extra
Not all-
heat training.
There we go. Well, let's jump into it. Like I said, we've talked quite a bit about Mauna Apparel on here because we're all a part of Team Mauna and obviously super fans of the actual brand. But why don't we dive into a little bit more about just how the brand started? What was the reason that you guys decided to start Mauna Apparel?
Gonzalo, you want to answer that?
Yeah, I think what happened, Jenna, is that about 4 or 5 years ago now, you know, we were a club that had like very passionate athletes, and we were in this whole journey of getting our custom kits done and kind of having an identity through our clothing and, you know, everything that happens in racing. And when we went through the process, we found it extremely difficult. We found it kind of, a lot of it was uncertain, and we found that like the price to quality wasn't necessarily representative of you know, how much money people put into buying like cycling and triathlon gear. And we were like, there has to be some type of like niche or gap here where we can give really good quality for a club price or like a very affordable price. And that's how we kind of started getting into it. Phil was like, hey, like we have to try this. And I'm like, Phil, you understand we have no clue how to make clothes, right? Like this isn't in any of our areas of expertise. And essentially we brought the right people in. We learned a lot of it ourselves. And yeah, that's kind of where we are, or where we started. And that's why the company does what it needs to do. And we believe in doing that through a very like honest pricing model where we make the sport accessible. Because, you know, between everything that an athlete has to buy and how expensive things are, it adds up quickly. And we're trying to do our part when it comes to the apparel for it to be more accessible. And that's why we offer really good value for product across both retail and wholesale or club
think-
orders.
I think like Gonzalo mentions, this started out of a necessity or a problem we saw as not only athletes or consumers, but also behind a business. Today, already 3.5 years in the business, I get these same things, these same comments coming from clubs. So sometimes you'll get a club saying like, look, you know, we buy X kits from X brand and yeah, it's cheap. The price point is good, but the quality is not. So then you see their club wearing other brands, including ours and other competitors, and not representing the club because the quality isn't, you know, up to the standards that, an athlete wants, right? So it's a big problem. Then of course, timings, right? Turnaround times. Not only some companies offer a very long turnaround time, but then the problem is many of them don't meet them, right? So that's one of our biggest hiccups when we had our coaching business or our team and we were working with other suppliers. Some of the turnaround, like some companies would say, okay, we would be delivering in February and this would become June, right? And I've heard brands waiting for apparel for 6 months or more, which is crazy. And at the end of the day, when you're organizing this, right, you're the team leader or the coach or whatever figure you have in the organization, even if you're not the person behind the apparel brand manufacturing this, you're the person responsible for organizing everything. And you need to put your face there and be like, look, this is happening. We're delayed, blah, 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 and kind of be responsible for it. So this was a big problem for us with many of the brands we work with. And then the last one, and all of these are, key pillars within our company right now. So turnaround times, price point, quality, and design capability. The price point, like Gonzalo mentioned, like some of these brands, the margins are crazy high. It's insane. And in our opinion, like there's no need to really go and sell a tri-suit for $1,200, especially now that we know what it takes to manufacture a suit. Of course, there's a lot of time that goes into research and development. And Gonzalo's, I guess, the key person to talk about this because he's the one that really has put in all the time and work to make, the key products or suits that we have been developing. But there's no need to charge over $1,000 for a tri-suit. Like there just isn't. And then design capability, I think, there's a lot of limitation, or sometimes we would work with a few brands that, all of you guys are familiar with all like the teams out there and they have like the sponsor logos, or even like some people do their individual suits like you have, Jenna, or even you, Josh, in the past. And sometimes we come across brands saying like, yeah, you need to pay an extra $10 to put another, logo on your chest. And that's not like, it's not like you don't, if you're going to print it, there's no need to be charging 10 more bucks for another logo, right? So these were kind of the hiccups we were running into. And out of frustration, I just, I was like, why don't we start an apparel business, right? And of course, we already had a team going on. We had some professional athletes. We had some very top level coaches that were also like high performing age troopers. And then we had the community of, athletes that were making the cutoff to, athletes that were pretty much winning their age troop, right? So, and all different sizes and, heights. So Fede, you were part of this process. I guess, Josh, you maybe joined kind of like in the middle, but it was, we started testing once we already had like a pretty decent prototype tested by pro athletes, tested by all of our team, and basically doing a market research with all the brands that you can imagine in the industry. And we're like, okay, this is good enough. We launched it as a soft launch with our team. And the feedback was amazing, right? Like Fede, you probably, or even you, Jenna, that's when you made the switch. And that's when we did that like red purplish suit. That was the first suit that's the first one that we manufactured and sold it as a Mauna or branded it as Mauna, even though we hadn't launched the brand officially. And now I look back at that suit and it's like so much has changed from there. But at that time, it was a pretty like, revolutionary or decent suit, right? So that's kind of how I guess it got started. Yeah, that's
That
the
is
thing
showing
right
one of
after.
the previous versions.
But and this is like an older version, like even like you were saying, Phil. The step up year by year of the product has been amazing, and yeah, like obviously it's not talking bad about the product development or anything, but like leaps have gone from suit one to what we have now. It's amazing how far we've come with the products. And yeah, obviously you listen to the community and we test everything out, and it's amazing how far and competitive the suits are right now.
No, 100%. And to your point, I think, I mean, it's great to see that, right? Because I think in any industry, like in any industry or any job or anything like today, with today's technology, not only apparel, but like, everybody here, Jenna, Josh, like all of you guys are coaches, everybody except Gonzalo on this call. Like, I think like in anything, if you stop, you die. So you always need to keep innovating. You always need to keep learning. You always need to keep testing. And the moment you think like, oh, okay, this product is amazing, I have it in the bag, like this is it, then you die, because there's other brands testing and trying and developing new things. So I think it's a constant process of seeing what works. Like even with our athletes, when we test against all the other brands and it's like custom fitted for them and it fits like a glove, it's testing better. We are always looking for different options of how to optimize, right? And that gets then transferred to what we sell, off the shelf. So I think it's super important. And to your point, Fede, like if we look back and the product is the same, then we should start to worry, right? Because, we're staying stuck in the past.
You want to talk about the process that it actually takes now that you've refined it over the years, and how does that look from concept to finished product? I know it takes a lot of time and maybe in some cases years. Do you guys want to walk us through how the whole process starts and where it goes?
Yeah.
I
Did you mean it specifically for custom suits or just any product? Like, let's say we're developing a new
products as a whole, I think. Right?
Yeah, I just think the products as a whole would be really cool to hear.
Yeah, I'll kind of start with the brief, like the most brief possible way to communicate it to you, and then you'll kind of see what it trickles into. Usually when you start a product from scratch, right? So when we say, hey, we're going to develop a windbreaker or we're going to develop whatever it is, right? When you're starting the product from scratch in a line you don't know, like, hey, we're going into cycling, we're going to start making cycling wear, you're going to take about a year to a year and a half to develop your products, right? And that has to do a lot with, trial and error. It has to do a lot with finding the right suppliers. And it also has to do a lot with something we're very big at, which is like getting all the feedback from the athletes. To put it to you in perspective is, right now we're a lot farther down the line, but there's about 10 people right now that we are in constant communication with that are solely responsible for identifying improvements in materials, improvements in aerodynamics, and so on. So there's 10 people that are, constantly like this is their kind of their life, and that they're looking at that. That's one part, or that's the supply part of how we make the product. Now,
what he means by that is sourcing the fabric. So as an example, like even with products that we already have, right? So for example, tri-suit, there's people constantly sourcing new fabrics or new technology or new proposals. So like, oh, why don't we try this out in the rib panel or the rib cage or in the shoulder? So this goes across any product that we have or we are in the works of developing.
And then everything that has to do with feedback oriented. So we're very consistent with that, which means like we use design thinking, for example, which is a product process for product development. Is months, because essentially you send this out to athletes, they test it, they race in it, they get feedback back to you. Then you give these wares to people with different body types. Then you give this to people who don't wear a wetsuit, wear a wetsuit, and you kind of put it through this whole like simulation and feedback process. And then through that time, you're making prototypes that improve and get better. And then you essentially get to a product where you say, okay, now we can, actually go ahead and sell this. So that's kind of how it breaks into that. Now, when you have a product, like we have a cycling jersey today and we want to go make a new one, it takes about 5 to 6 months, right? Because we already have an existing base and we kind of build off of that, and we have the feedbacks and we have the size types. So there's a lot of work that has been cut out. And yeah, then for example, like pro athletes, it's like a 3-month process to get them their actual like properly fit kit. Because we'll make one, they try it on, they kind of work out in it, they see where it's loose, not loose. They tell us, I like it here, I like it there, this is too tight. And then within 1 or 2 or 3 iterations, they have something which is like, it closes perfectly, it's right around the neck, and so on. So there's all these type of developments at all levels, which is, part of the reason why the industry is so expensive, as you can see also like in all types of products and all types of gadgets and all types of equipment, because it just takes that long. It takes that effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I think made some noise within the industry was it looks like you guys went to the wind tunnel to test out some of your tri-suits against some of the competitors on both amateur and professional athletes. Philip, can you tell us a little bit about kind of how that went and what you saw kind of comparing head to head, yours versus some of the other top names in the brand or in the industry.
Yeah. I want to start by saying, and this is like something I talk with professional athletes and with brands and with like anybody that wants to get a custom suit or companies that are doing, even kits for their clubs. Like aerodynamic efficiencies or testing is very personal, right? Again, when I test something, when I test against 4 of our competitors and my suits test between 2.3 and 4.2% faster than the rest of the competitors, that's personal for me, right? Now, when we carried out that testing with me specifically, it was an off-the-shelf Mauna kit versus an off-the-shelf top-of-the-line kit from those brands. So it's not like we're testing a Mauna suit that is completely tailored for my body type and, set up in my bike. We're comparing apples with apples, right? Now, where it becomes interesting is when you go with 5 people to the wind tunnel and you test an off-the-shelf tri-suit versus 4 off-the-shelf or 5 other brands, and the results are consistent with the 5 different people, when we've already had these type of results in velodromes, field testing with sensors, et cetera, et cetera. So that just validates, okay, this suit in general tests better than all these suits that, cost $400, $500 more, right? Which is ultimately, what the mass buys, right? Like, if you're an athlete, an A-tube athlete, you're going to go buy, usually speaking, you're going to buy an off-the-shelf suit. It's rare, like people do buy custom suits and we do offer individual tailored suits, but it's a lot more expensive, right? So comparing apples with apples, those are the results we had. And of course, for professional athletes, that makes a much bigger difference, or even for me with a tailored suit, because then it's specific to you and that's what you're going to be wearing. Like Gonzalo mentioned, it's tailored to you specifically. And it's not only those 3 months that Gonzalo mentioned, it's an ongoing process that we're always trying to improve. I don't know if that answers your question or if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about that specifically.
No, I think that sounded like it was a pretty good answer to me. The wind tunnel is definitely something that intrigues a lot of age groupers all the way up through pros. So it's always neat to hear how that process went, and kind of now you're starting to see some of the names that you're signing, and obviously with the big splash with the world champ Yellow Geens, how'd that all take place, and that seems like it was probably something that took a little while to work out as well.
100%, and that's pretty much my job today. One of my biggest jobs is working with professional athletes and bringing them on board and part of all those negotiations. So it's a big personal achievement for me and also for the brand and everybody behind it. Of course, everybody that works in the company has done or put their grain of salt to get to this point, right? It's not only the conversations and the negotiations, it's the marketing, it's the product development, it's everything. But it was a conversation that had been, I talked to Yele, years ago when he raced in Oceanside, even before he had the amazing results he had in T100 and of course winning Taupo and whatnot. And at some point last year, like everything, we've had a lot of conversations with top caliber athletes and we've got a lot of doors shut down. And because we're a new brand, we're 3.5 years. So I think a lot of professional athletes, sometimes they have their doubts with emerging brands, and it's understandable. Like you saw Rudy's post a few days ago with Factor, and I don't blame them. Like, you're a professional athlete. This is what you do for a living. And you're going to go out and trust a brand for whatever type of, equipment, like tri-suits, running shoes, bikes, wheels, any type of gadget that at the end of the day makes such a difference in your performance. And, you go out and trust this brand that they're going to do what they're saying. Like in our case, it's like, we're going to make your suits faster, right? And then out of nowhere, the brand is like, well, you know what? Like, just to Fede's point, we're just going to stay with this suit. This is good enough, right? And I think that, like, professional athletes and at Yele's level, right? And even like at our level, right? I think it makes such a massive difference having a suit that fits you well and that is doing the job, in terms of saving the watts that you need. Like, there's no room for giving away free speed. So I think this is something that, of course, like people or the industry already knows that we've been doing a good job with this. And we had a lot of conversations with Yele, and I think things really clicked from the beginning. He really liked what we were doing as a brand and really believed in the project. And, ultimately, a lot of times when I get in a call with pro athletes, they laugh because, they're like, okay, so for us, it's super important that we have a suit that is, testing, best in the other brands or at least in par. And I'm like, look, don't worry about that. The least thing, like, this doesn't worry me. Like, if it doesn't, you can walk out of the contract and we can put that as a clause. Like, I have that level of confidence, and it's not me, that's all Gonzalo, but I have that level of confidence. So a lot of pressure lies on him. But I think we've gotten to a point where, the product is top notch. We have so much attention to detail, and the pro athletes see that. Like right now, Gonzalo's working with 2 pros that we're going to be announcing soon. And they've worked with all the top competitors in the industry. And they just, Gonzalo, you can like explain a little bit more on that later. But I think I got a little bit out of the conversation, but yeah, that's kind of how it got started. And I think the main concern for Yele was working with a brand that was committed to always be innovating and making sure he has the fastest suit in the industry, and especially with what's coming up with his career right now, racing in Hawaii. And for us as a brand, that really resonates. Not only we want to be working with the best, but we want to, like, for me, Kona is, it's the main event of the year, not only as an athlete, but I just thrive on going there year to year. I love it. I think it's a great week, in the industry where everybody's out there. The vibe is amazing. It's the place to be. And I think, when he decided to go for this, it was the best decision, ever, because we are really committed right now to helping aid in that specific area, which is a tri-suit, and making sure we're optimizing as best as possible to at least get him in the chance of contention for the title.
Yeah, and before we kind of move on there, let's stay with Yellow with, if you guys haven't heard and aren't geeking out on triathlon as much as we are, he's announced that he is going to do his first Ironman here with the goal of getting to the Ironman World Championships and the bigger goal of winning the Ironman World Championship. So I believe it's Ironman New Zealand is going to be his first one. Texas, sorry, my bad there. So that'll be awesome to see him out there and see what he can do. And, how good would it be if we saw another head-to-head battle with Christian Blumenfeld running down that finish line, although this time he'll have a few extra minutes after riding in a Mauna suit, especially out there on the flat course in Texas.
Yeah, if you did see his interview, he meant, if in the podcast, he mentioned that the reason he's going to Texas is because, one, it kind of simulates the conditions of Hawaii. It's hot and humid. So that's one. And then the other is he thrives being there with the best in the sport. Like he's like, I could go to South Africa and probably get a slot there, but I want to go and compete against Christian, against, Gustav, against everybody's going to Texas, right? So there's going to be a stacked field, and it's going to be interesting to see how his debut comes along in this race and what he can get out of that. We're actually going to the wind tunnel with him and, some A-tube athletes. We can talk about that later, but the week after Texas. So, there's definitely room to keep improving on that end.
Hopefully they're not running the same speed they ran in those 70.3 world champs at the end of a marathon, but that would be impressive.
Then we might see another Kona finish with the women's finish this year with complete implosions on the last few kilometers. Well, Gonzalo, sorry to cut you off there. Why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of that process with working with the pro athletes and what you do to help them in their suits?
No, definitely. And Josh, going back to your question, about how it was and how it shakes up. And, the thing that I realized is, over these years, we've been in touch with so many pro athletes where we're like, we want this person, right? Now, the amount of things that have to go right is crazy, because sometimes they have managers. You have to kind of figure out the manager. Sometimes they want, or their perception of salary is different. Sometimes they're not the type of athlete that you realize that wants to continuously improve and be together with the brand. So it's a whole big mix of things, right? And that was kind of like the challenge of getting to an athlete like Yele, and of Yele's athletic pedigree, is that you've probably had this conversation like with 40 other people that, you're trying to kind of like evolve, and you're kind of trying to show them how you evolve. And it's like a very detailed job interview process. And you don't necessarily get to do that straight away, because it's like, oh, I'm racing here. or hey, I have another commitment till November. And so all of these things play into it. And, I always tell Fede, like, hey, yeah, we missed out on some big names. Today, I'm not here complaining about the name that we have, because it's a amazing, very humble guy. He kills it in the sport. So to me, it's like, hey, this happened. And today we might not even be in a position to sponsor someone like that, because we could have had a packed roster. And we just luckily, got there at the right time. And yeah, he's an amazing guy to work with. He's super humble and just, does everything he needs to do as a professional to kind of get to the level where he's at. He has the right dedication and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one thing I think that has really shown kind of the growth of Mauna Apparel over the years is even like the Ironman Tri Club rankings. So obviously, Mauna does custom tri suits for clubs, and that started with providing the best tri suits for your own members. And it's been cool to see the team move up the rankings from, Division 2, topping Division 2, now in the podium of Division 1, up against some big brands that have been around for, well, someone like Zoot, who's been around forever. So it's been cool to see kind of that rise as the team grows and just have a connected group of athletes. But why don't you tell us a little bit about just kind of the team, what it is, what kind of benefits they get, or why people should care about it?
Phil, this is your specialty.
Yeah, I mean, I think, at the end of the day, there's so many teams out there. And like you said, there has been a pretty substantial growth today in the Ironman rankings globally. We're the 4th biggest team in the world. And I guess everybody, including you three in this podcast, like are part of the team and have seen that grow, from very close. And I guess, funny enough, Fede is probably the one that's been here for the longest, so he can kind of attest to this. And I think, ultimately today, when you belong to a team, there's quite a few things that you're looking for. Of course, you're looking for that community aspect. As everybody knows here, triathlon is a very individual sport. It is an individual sport. But of course, that changes when you have a community and you have people to talk about, today I was chatting with Josh about a few things, and it's with you, Jenna, I chat a lot, same with Fede. So I think just having that community aspect when there's people all around the globe and be able to connect and share things, or, be able to tell about, how your training is doing and meet up in races, or in this case, in the training camp, and do these kind of activities in such a lonely sport. It makes a big difference. And I think, or I don't think, we are considered the biggest global team in the world. And what that means is we are the team with most people scattered across different countries and regions. And we are the only team right now in Ironman teams, or in the Ironman rankings, that has a specific structure because of that, right? So let's say, there's a local team in Texas, and they show up and they have 120 people in a race. Yeah, it's a huge number. It's a huge attendance. But that same weekend, we have people in 70.3 Punta del Este in Uruguay, in 70.3 Oceanside, in 70.3 Malaysia, in Ironman South Africa. So every weekend in every race around the globe, the chances that you see somebody from Mauna racing are very high. So that's a cool thing, in that I personally really, I'm proud of, because I love traveling. I think everybody here can tell. And one of the main reasons I like doing triathlon is getting to know new places. So the reason I picked El Salvador next week is because I've never been there, and I just wanted to get to know that place, right? I could have raced in, I don't know, any other place. And I picked that just to get to know the country and connect with a lot of people that are going, clubs that we work with, athletes that are part of our team. And we're going to be there in the expo. So I think that's one thing, the community. Then, of course, it's the sponsors and the perks. No particular order. I think community for sure is one of the top, but then, sponsors and perks is another important one. We work with a ton of sponsors, over 20 brands, and we handpicked them. And the next point is, behind the brand, we're all athletes and we all do triathlon. So different from other teams that are run maybe by ex-professional athletes, or people that, maybe were in the sport before, but aren't really now. There's a lot of passion, right? So like Jenna, you're part of our management team, and, you see, you also do triathlon, you're passionate about it. So when we show up in a world championship, many of the people running the business are competing there, right? Or in any other race. So that means that there's a lot of passion behind developing the products, running the community, meeting up in events. And I think that really makes a big difference, where if you're telling me like, the tri-suit that you're developing is not good, I'll be like, wait, are you serious? Like, and I'll try to find a way for this to be tweaked, or, hey, like, why don't we add this gadget on the bibs? Like, we really take that into consideration, and we do this because we have fun, right? We're going to a training camp and organizing a training camp is, we also like to be part of it, right? So I think that really makes a big difference when having a community. And I think that's one of the big reasons why it's grown to where it is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it makes a big difference. Just when you have other people to chat with who kind of get it, when people in your everyday life, if you say, I'm going to go do a 3-hour bike ride, they look at you like you're absolutely insane. When if you say that on our community, they just understand. And that definitely helps a lot.
Well, and we show up in numbers, like Phil said, but we show up in numbers all wearing the same suits too, or the same brand if people have their custom suit. And it gets obvious at some of these smaller races too. That last year, seeing the orange everywhere, or seeing the different custom suits out there. And it's really neat to go to an event and somebody who might not even be a part of the team, but they're part of a club team that got a custom suit. And then it's like, well, we got this whole community aspect too that you guys should join to be a part of. It's a really cool aspect of everything, and the word of mouth. You can see it at events. Like, people start to get FOMO and they want to be a part of it. And we've seen that growth each year, and a lot of it is word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, Josh.
I wanna add this for the listeners. Like, if you're the type of athlete who travels alone to races, it's very cool to have a community that backs you up, because oftentimes on the group chat, you're like, hey, does anybody have a spare gel, or does anybody have a pump or a spare pair of goggles because I forgot mine home? And the community backs you up because, like Phil said, there's always somebody from Mauna Racing that's going to be at a race. And that just takes a lot of pressure off of you. Somebody's going to be there, and obviously don't rely solely on that, but it's cool to have that community part aspect, because oftentimes things happen, and triathlon is a stressful sport, and being part of something bigger than yourself just takes that stress out of the picture in some shape or form.
Yeah, and plus the high fives on course are great. You kind of see some familiar faces, and it's like, Monica, high five as you go. So just stuff like that definitely gives you a boost. But so Gonzalo, Philip, you're both very much in the industry, from the pro side, from the industry side. Is there anything that really kind of stands out to you about the triathlon industry right now?
Yeah, I mean, I don't come from this industry, right? I've never, I actually worked in hospitality before starting this venture. And one thing that, I've seen is it's a thriving sport. And when it comes to like athlete dedication and professionals being dedicated and so on, like, they do it at the very highest level. Like, they're extremely, extremely, extremely professional. Even some age groupers, I could tell you, like, they take care of themselves just as much as the pros, and they're after it, and they do it to that level. What was really kind of like not shocking, but like a little bit like eye-opening to me was that there was a big part of the commercial aspect of this industry where there was a big lack of professionalism. And like that, I get to see it across time with, how brands are changing, how certain brands are like hitting peaks, and then, then they're in trouble, and then they're restructuring. And also even in some of the ways, pros have like management companies where sometimes I like really question the way something is handled, or the decisions. And it was just amazing to me, because where I go at is like, look at the growth that is being experienced here. And it's still being experienced despite these type of like not like structural issues, right? And I was just blown away, because it was part of the opportunity that Phil and I saw. It was like, something is unattended here. Something like the level of the market and infrastructure is not to the level of the commitment of the athletes. And that was, to me, kind of like, we need to go to it. And that's why a lot of people, like, when they do the custom program in our company, I sit with them myself. I'm like, tell me about this. Tell me about the fit. Tell me about your racing. Tell me about this. And they're like, wow, like, had I known that this is the effort being put into this, like, I would have started wearing you 3 years ago. And that's kind of where I feel that it's the sport is so filled with opportunity, and you get to see that too. Also, like in terms of broadcasting, the guys of Super League, they were very smart because they're like, hey, how can we put this whole thing in one TV screen, right? Instead of just seeing like someone just riding, like when it's Taylor, she's just like going around and the bike is following her. But in Super League, they're like, how do we commercialize the broadcasting value of this? Right? And they put it in one place. So that was just, these are the type of ideas that the industry needs, and the right people are getting involved. So I'm very eager to see, what's going to start popping and so on, because a lot of it has been, let's say, underutilized, or it hasn't been reaching the potential that it should.
Yeah, I think to your point, like, and Josh, you probably can, now that you're working in the industry, you can probably attest to this, and you probably run into the same hiccups or hit your head against a wall, because like Gonzalo's mentioning, there's a lot of potential and it's a growing sport and industry, but it's like sometimes it's so hard to deal professionally with different stakeholders in the industry, from professional athletes to managers to other companies. It's hard, and sometimes like people think it's all fun and games, and like you went out for a ride with this professional athlete, or you went to the wind tunnel and this and that, but there's a lot, like Gonzalo was mentioning, like a lot of frustrations in conversations or negotiations or ways to get to that point, that it's not like other industries where I come from a finance industry, so there's certain aspects of that I see that repeat, or there's a trend in this specific industry that is just like unprofessional about it. And I think, of course, like Gonzalo mentions, that's where the opportunities lie, right? Because if it is treated unprofessionally, when you do things professionally, you don't need to be doing rocket science to make things more interesting for customers or other stakeholders. So I think that's where the real opportunity lies, and kind of the struggles we've met across all the different actors within it.
Well, since you brought up Supertri here, Josh, why don't you tell us a little bit about how Supertri is basically completely changing how they do things next year?
Almost completely. Let's go
Like,
with 75% changing in terms of the race calendars. Yeah, I just announced last week that we talked about the broadcasting, and there's going to be a change there as well, unfortunately. But fortunately, the final race is still going to be heavily broadcasted and done correctly and fun, like Gonzalo was talking about. But yeah, we're going to have 3 races in the Supertri format this year. The neat thing about it that I take away is that it's going to bring more people into the sport, which is what Super League got its start around, and giving more up and coming Olympic hopefuls an opportunity to test their fitness and their level in triathlon against some of the world's best. And this is going to do that. You're going to have, starting off in Austin Memorial Day, a bunch of local pros through the USAT system coming in and racing in a draft legal sprint format. And 3 males, 3 females are going to get a spot to go to the grand final in Europe somewhere. To date, the date and the location still to be announced, but that's coming soon. But there's going to be people who maybe have never raced in that type of a caliber race before getting an opportunity to do so. And that'll start for some in Austin. Then it'll happen for others in the UK at Blenheim Palace, which has got a huge history, and Captex has a huge history of professional short course racing. Those are going to be back, and then finishing up in Toronto. So we've got 3 different locations that we're going to work with those governing bodies. So British Triathlon, and then Canada as well with their Triathlon Federation, to have these be backed and allowing more people to come into the professional ranks, and then the grand final. And that's going to pay 1 through 10. So 10 spots will get paid. One top 3 will be 5,000 down to 2,000. And then there'll be 1,000 across the board through 10th place. So people are going to get paid to show up at these short course races. It's going to inspire a whole bunch of the mass participation field that are now doing the exact same course as the others. And I know that's done elsewhere as well, but not often in short course anymore, especially. And first timers, it's just another aspect. And we're trying to get more people into the sport, really, is what we're all trying to do at the end of the day, and grow the sport that way. So I think it's a good opportunity to do that. And then the grand final is going to be that Supertri format. And you're going to have some people from Texas showing up in wherever in Europe the grand final ends up being, and racing against an Alex Yee and some contracted athletes that are still going to be under the Supertri brand. And whether they show up at Blenheim Palace or not to race as well, we don't know. But there will be, I think, 9 contracted athletes on both the male and female side that will be racing against the qualifiers as well. So you'll have Supertri format and short shoots. So Jenna, when we asked the question on the bingo card, will the short shoot still be a factor this year? Yes, it will. In one final race, and that will have the largest prize purse in a single day, with $800,000 on the line and $100,000 to each of the male and female winners in that Supertri race. And it's all individual, no more team format.
Yeah, so basically teams are gone. Supertri format is gone except for the grand final. The other races will all be sprint, draft legal, run alongside the age group races as well. Is that it?
Correct. And those 3 qualifying races will be heavily digitally broadcasted, but not your typical YouTube format that you're used to. And then when we get to the grand final, that will be a huge production that we're working with a partner on, and should be everything that you're used to seeing. But I think this new digital way is going to be transformational as well.
Very cool. It'll be interesting to see how it shakes it up and get some new fresh blood into the grand final there in that Supertri way of racing. So that'll be fun to watch at the end of the year. Gonzalo, Philip, was there anything else that you wanted to kind of mention about Mauna before we wrapped up here?
No, just, from my end is thank everyone that's been a part of this. Thank every athlete that, trusts in our brand on their very big days. And yeah, just trying to do our best here to keep giving access to just great clothes at a very honest price, so people and athletes can perform better. That's really what we came here to do, and hopefully that message is being seen, not just inside but outside as well.
Yeah, I love it.
And of course, hopefully we snag a few world titles. And yeah, we're going to be present in quite a few events this year. I think we're going to be in over 35 expos worldwide. So in Australia, Europe, US, Canada, Mexico, even in the Middle East. So it's going to be a pretty big impact calendar, and obviously all world championships as we have in the last years. So hopefully this year we get some good results tied together with that.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're at any of the Ironman races, go take a look for the Mauna Apparel booth. The team is pretty awesome out there. They all just love to geek out on triathlon too. So it's a good chance to check it out and have some fun with the team. But thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll put links to all the Mauna accounts in there too, so that people can follow along, check out some more info on the pro athletes, the apparel, and all the expos and stuff. But until then, thank you so much for joining us, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, Fed here from another triathlon podcast, and we have a very special guest today. We have Jane, and Jane is the race director for Challenge Wanaka down in New Zealand. We have her on so that we know more about what's happening on that part of the world, and talk a little bit about Challenge Wanaka history, why it's become the iconic race that it has become through the years. And yeah, thank you for joining us, Jane.
Thanks for having me, Fed.
Awesome. Well, I want to talk to you about the race, and I think I first knew about Challenge Wanaka off of Jesse Thomas' post. Remember, I don't know if he used to have like a written blog, and he had this series called Cool Races in Cool Places, and he wrote about Challenge Wanaka, and I read about that on his blog, and ever since I was like, I need to get myself down to Wanaka, and I've been lucky to have been able to race over there a few times now. But I want you to give us a rundown about when the race started and why it has become the festival that it is right now.
Yeah, sure. So we're actually celebrating our 20th year of Challenge Wanaka this year. So it's a big deal for us. So we're all pretty excited and prepping for those celebrations. And a lot has happened in those 20 years. So Challenge Wanaka is one of the Challenge family races, and everyone will know that Challenge family has races all around the world. But we were actually the second event to start outside of Challenge Roth in Germany. So the team in Germany had some connections here in New Zealand, and they wanted to start the race up. So we're going back to the discussions, I believe, started in 2006, and the first inaugural race was in 2007. And I believe that originally the plan was to hold the race in Queenstown. But quite close to the event, it got changed to Wanaka, and we're so grateful for that. And I'm sure anyone who knows the area will agree that Wanaka is a much better place to hold a triathlon. And, you know, it's such an important event for our community as well. So right back in the beginning, there was a very small field, and it was the long distance triathlon back in 2007, and you flip forward now 20 years later, and the festival runs over 3 days, and we have events for every age and ability, ranging from preschoolers from 1 or 2 years of age right through to seniors. And I think that's part of the beauty of the event, is that anybody can do it, and it still has an appeal for elite and professional athletes as well. So it is pretty special for us here.
Yeah. I can tell that everybody gets behind the race, and when race week comes on, everybody's talking about the race, and you see people coming into town and getting their bikes ready and just riding around town and swimming, and beautiful Lake Wanaka. And actually, I was there the year that they had the what's it called, the secondary school championships.
Yes. Yep.
And that was really, really cool to watch. And now, I mean, that you're saying that kids,
Yeah.
super young, starting to get into that. What are the distances that these young triathletes do?
Well, when we're talking about the preschoolers, so the sort of 2 to 5 year olds, they literally do a couple of 100 meters on their scooter or their balance bike around the park, and then they run and jump and slide down a slip and slide, which is pretty cool. And then they run a couple of 100 meters, but they get to cross up the red carpet and cross over the official finish line. So for a small child, that's pretty cool. And most of them have their parents running along with them. So those distances are quite small. Once they get to primary school, the little ones will just run along the beach instead of going to the water, and then jump on their bikes for about a K and then run a few 100 meters. But as they get a little bit older, to the 7, 8 years old, they'll start to do a bit of a swim, 50 meters, 100 meters. And each year we just try to increase the distances and challenge them a little bit more. The very cool thing about our primary schools, our local primary schools in Wanaka, is they make Challenge Wanaka part of the school curriculum effectively. So it's expected that all kids participate. So to give you an idea of numbers, on the Thursday of the festival, we'll have 1,250 primary school age children competing in that junior challenge, which logistically is a challenge, but gosh, it's so worth it when you see the smiles on those kids' faces, and kids who are anxious suddenly achieving a triathlon, and how proud they are of themselves. It's pretty cool. And then especially when the next day their older siblings may compete, and then on the Saturday their parents have the opportunity to compete. So it really is the whole family being involved in the festival.
That's amazing. And we've been talking on the podcast that there needs to be more encouragement for the young athletes to get into the sport, because most of us fall into triathlon later in life, and I think it's really important to get those younger generations inspired from a young age, getting them to cross on the same finish line. I think that's a really cool thing to do. And also,
and I think, sorry, you go.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say, so Challenge Wanaka is actually run by a charitable trust, so the Challenge Wanaka Sports Trust, which was set up close to the beginning of the event. And our trust status enables us to apply for community grants. So we're very lucky and grateful for the support of community funders that we apply to throughout the year to help us fund those junior events, because as you can imagine, it's not cheap to put these events on, but those grants enable us to subsidise the junior triathlon for our local children, which means they are more accessible to everybody. So they don't have to pay hundreds of dollars to compete in a world-class event. We offer it at a very reduced rate, and it means that everyone can take part and there's no barriers. And I think that's a really important part of our festival as well.
Yeah, it seems, well, for me that I've raced there a couple times, it seems to me that the whole community gets behind the event. And also a very important thing for me, and now actually the world in general, it's how eco-friendly races are. And I believe you guys are at the forefront when it comes to wasting as little as possible, and having all the recycling bins over there. And I don't remember what year it was, but you guys gave us like a silicone cup to use on the
Yes,
run, which was very
yes.
helpful, and I still use on my runs today.
It's really, and that's really interesting topic, Fed, and something that, you know, as a team we really struggle with. But the QLDC, or the region that we live in, is very hot on sustainability and waste minimization. And not only do we believe in it, but a lot of our funding is dependent on us adhering to quite strict waste minimization policies. So it's not easy because, you know, in the past we've had a lot of merchandise and giveaways and gifts and everything, and we have tried to pull back on those things, which doesn't suit everybody. But I believe if you want to be able to purchase those things, you can. We don't want to just give away stuff that ultimately some people will throw out. So we've tried to make some changes there. And we do have some beautiful Precio merchandise available for purchase for people who do want a t-shirt, etc. And, you know, we do have significant recycling bins all around on site. And the other thing that we've tried to do is minimize the disposable cups, because wherever you go in the world, I find like when I've run marathons, you're swimming through just like paper cups everywhere, and it's like, how can we change this? So the silicone cups were introduced before my time. I do think it's quite hard changing the mindset of some triathletes. If you go to a trail run event these days, it's expected that you carry your own water, or you have a vessel that will be refilled. However, it's a little bit different for triathlon, and that's something we're just trying to manage and change. And we are aiming for a disposable cup-free event this year. We're not providing people with those cups because most people have those, right? Or they have soft flasks. So we're asking them to carry them, and our aid station volunteers have a very efficient system of refilling those as people run through the aid station.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
we're trying to make small changes in small steps.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And let's talk a little bit about the race. So the race it starts in Lake Wanaka this year, and
Yes.
talk us through a little bit about the course, because I know I've talked through people, and they are like on the fence of signing up because they think it's too hard or too challenging or too hilly. But
Yeah.
people here in the north hemisphere, they just want fast and flat. But
Yeah.
I reckon having a course like Wanaka can only make you a better athlete, and it's way more rewarding when you cross the finish line.
I strongly believe you can't really compare your performance from one race to another because the courses are different, right? So you compare your race, you know, this year to what you did last year on the same course, although we have slightly tweaked the course. It is a really tough one. As you know, the Challenge Wanaka course moved out to Glendew Bay for a few years. just around the lake a bit. That was an incredibly tough run course, very hilly. You must have raced that one, Fed. Yeah.
Yes.
And that definitely put people off. It was a beautiful setting at Glendo, but we did find that most athletes and sponsors and people involved in the race wanted it back in the centre of Wanaka. So we moved it back for 2025. It was hugely successful. We learned a lot about how we could do it better for this year, and we've made some improvements. The swim is on the main lakefront of Wanaka, which has just got iconic views. It's stunning. As you know, swimming in a lake is quite different to swimming in the ocean, and we do highly recommend to any athletes coming from out of the local area to get in the lake before the race and see how cold it is and see how it feels different with less buoyancy, being freshwater. But it is a really beautiful experience swimming in that lake. The bike course is this year going to be a 2-lap course.
Okay.
Last year we trialled a 3-lap course and it was a bit congested. So we've opted for the 2 laps this year, and I have to say it's just such an incredible course in terms of the scenery. So cyclists will head out to Treble Cone for the turnaround point and back into town. It's not flat and fast, but it is an honest course, and there's definitely some great sections, rolling hills. We are heading up a rather large hill to start off the lap this year. I'm not sure if you've seen the course, and that is largely to spread athletes out on the laps and to make up the distance. We wanted to make sure we were bang on that 90 k's. So I have had a few people query that little dog leg at the start of the lap, but I think it's a good little kicker to start off. That's our bike course, and then we're keeping the run course the same as last year. It's a 2-lap course. It's relatively flat and fast. In saying that, however, it is sort of half on hard-packed gravel paths rather than the other half is on footpaths and roads. So it is a different kind of running, but it is definitely a faster run course than what we experienced at Glendo.
Yeah, awesome.
And what we've aimed to do with the hub of the event is have, the swimmers come through the central point into transition. The cyclists will lap at that same point and the runners will lap at that same point. So if you place yourself right there in the event hub, you'll be able to see all the action going on. It's very cool.
Which is like a very cool thing to hear for spectators, because some of these races they see us athletes racing maybe once every hour and a half or so. So
Yes.
it's very cool to see how you planned out the race, and that they're going to be seeing the people that they're cheering for, but also all of the action. And
Yeah, absolutely.
Wanaka, it's like a very important race for the pro field, because a lot of athletes use the race to start their season. So it has something to say about the race, because even though it's a smaller race compared to others, a lot of big names and good athletes make the trip to Wanaka to race, to have an honest course, to get the vibes off of the community. And I think that has a lot to say for the race, that a lot of like really cool names show up year after year to compete.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got we were a bit last minute with getting our pro field together for this year. We did have a break from our pro field last year just due to budget constraints. And as you know, it's been a tough few years for events around the world. But we made it through, and we've come back and been able to put together a pretty decent pro field for this year. So we're pretty excited to be welcoming Friedrich Funk from Germany to head up the male pro field, and he'll be battling it out with some of our our local favourites, Mike Phillips and Jack Moody. So I'm pretty excited about that. And then in the women's field, we've got Lucy Byram coming from the UK. So, she's had a tough year, and we're really looking forward to welcoming her here to Wanaka. We've got a couple of local favourites as well in the women's field. Danielle Donaldson, who has just debuted as a pro in Tauranga recently, and Beck Clark, who's competed several times before. So we're pretty excited, and the pros add something else to the festival as well. We've found they're usually really engaged, and they'll help out with the junior and youth events, and that's another buzz for those young grassroots triathletes as well. Having someone to look up to, and in those pros, and to see where they could go if they were to continue in the sport.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. And also wanted to tell people like about not just the race but like the destination, because for a lot of people it's quite a bit of a long trip, and
Yes.
a lot of guys are like, "Oh, that's a long way just to race a triathlon." But just tell us
So
a little
don't
bit
just come for the race, come and make a holiday out of it. And that is definitely, what we're trying to encourage people to do. And as you know, Fede, there's so much to do in Wanaka. There's obviously a lot just to get out in nature and do some hikes, or, get out on the lake. But we've got an amazing mountain bike park here called Bike Glendale. Which is where you will be familiar with doing the run in Challenge Wanaka previously. I'd much rather bike up there than run up there. So that's an incredible place, even if you just want to cycle around the lake or down the river. We've got kayaks for hire. We've got local tourism operators such as Eco Adventures, who will take you right up the lake. There's a particularly special place up there, an island called Moahu. Have you made it up there before?
I don't think so. Probably.
So there's an island in the lake, and you climb up that island, and then there's another tiny lake with another tiny island on the top of the island on the lake on the island.
Oof.
Yeah.
sounds like a riddle, that one.
Yeah. It's very cool. And then obviously we're a small town, but I think we're punching well above our weight in terms of the amazing cafes and restaurants that we have on offer, and they're also close because the town is very much focused around that lakefront, so you can enjoy the beautiful atmosphere on the along that main road at one of the bars or restaurants there.
Amazing. I wanted to ask you something that popped up with our co-hosts recently. Do you guys want to keep the race small, like to conserve this community vibe throughout the years, or is the intention of growing the race and getting more numbers in, or where do you see, like in an ideal world, where would Challenge Wanaka be placed in the world map of racing?
I think there's a lot of opinions on that matter, and I, as part of the trust meetings, we have a lot of discussion about this on a regular basis. But I do believe the current trustees, we want to grow the event. We want to be that world-class event that is drawing people from around the world to come here and and be part of the tourism that makes Wanaka what it is. It's not easy because yes, the community here is wonderful and very generous with their time and helping out with the event. But the Wanaka has grown phenomenally in the last 20 years. It's not the same town that it was when this event started. So, when we're putting road closures in place now, we're not just affecting a small group of residents. The whole bike course, there are new developments out there, new houses, there are business operators that we are putting out. So there is balancing the growth with the growth of the town and how we affect it. And that's why I think you'll you'll see why we have had to change the course each year, and each year is slightly different because there's been new developments around the town. So yes, we want to grow, but we also want to make sure we do it and keeping the best interests of all stakeholders in mind, and that is a very delicate balance.
Yeah, no, totally understand. You want to make the best decision possible and affect the least amount of people possible as well, and so that everybody's happy.
And that's becoming harder, but you know what, we try and give back where we can. So as a non-profit, we give back money to the community. As I mentioned before, all that funding goes into subsidising the children's events, and then we use local organisations who will help us at the event with things like car parking and catering, and rubbish collection, and we give donations back to them out of any surplus that we have from the event. So we are constantly giving back to the community, and trying to keep it as a positive event on the calendar in Wanaka for everyone.
Absolutely. And also like the fact that the course changes often, it's a good excuse for us to go every single year and see which course we like best. Either if it's
absolutely. Although I am hoping maybe next year we'll just stay the same. We'll see.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see. So for our viewers and listeners, what are your top 3 recommendations of must see things in Wanaka besides the race?
I think if you want to have a little hike and get the best bang for your buck, or the best bang for your effort, I would definitely head out Mount Iron, which is it's only about a half an hour, 40 minutes walk up the hill on the entrance to Wanaka, from the south, and it is just stunning views from the top of Mount Iron. And lots of locals love it, and all visitors love it, and you don't have to spend all day climbing up there to get that stunning view. That would be one of my favourites. In terms of out on the lake, going up to the Moahu Island that I mentioned before is a bit of a mission, but if you can get to Ruby Island, you could even swim there, because it's less than a K to swim out to Ruby Island from Waterfall Creek. It's a beautiful little island, just in the middle of the main bay there, and you can walk all around there and swim, jump off the wharf, look at the eels, all that. And what about the third thing? This is a personal favourite. I would say head to Edgewater for a coffee and a scone. Edgewater is just probably about 2 or 3 Ks from the centre of town around the lake. It's a hotel and cafe and restaurant. And there's a beautiful lawn there where you can sit out on the lawn overlooking the lake and enjoy a drink and something to eat. So those would be my easy to do recommendations for Wanaka.
Yeah, awesome. And now for those of us racing, what are your top tips when it comes to race day? Like when it comes to the swim, the bike, the run, and just
I think in general, be prepared for anything weather-wise. You'll know, Fed, Wanaka can be very variable. So in summer, we can get snow on the hills, and it can be very cold. So, just this week I was wearing my winter clothes, and now today is exceptionally hot here. So be prepared for that. The other thing is, in the morning when the swim starts, it will be cold. The air temperature will be cold, but by the time you're on the run course, it can be sweltering. I spent a large part of the afternoon last year driving around delivering more and more ice to all the aid stations. We had residents out on their backyards with hoses hosing down the runners, which was very cool. But yeah, it can be very hot, but it may not be. So be prepared. The other thing with the lake is it can be beautifully calm, but it can also be incredibly rough. And swimming in a rough lake is quite different to swimming in the ocean with waves. So obviously we'll assess the conditions on the morning of the race, and very confident we'll be able to go ahead, but we have to look at it from a safety perspective. But I would recommend that anyone who is arriving a day or two before to get in the lake and just get a feel for what it's like on there. The other thing on the bike course, which I'm just working on the race briefing at the moment as well, is it is a rural area, and we have a couple of one-lane bridges. So cyclists aren't allowed to pass on those bridges for safety reasons. They're quite narrow. And we also have a couple of cattle grids. Is that what you call them? Cattle grids?
Yeah.
Cattle stops. Yeah. They are very cyclable. So we won't be covering them. And my opinion is that if you cover something like that, you create an extra hazard. So they are very cyclable. Cyclists here ride over them all the time. But if anyone is here in advance and has a chance to get out on that road and just feel what it's like to ride over them, they should. I wouldn't ride slowly over them. I would ride at a reasonable pace, but not super fast either. So just slow down slightly and just keep your wheel straight so you don't fall into the cattle grid. It's just something to be aware of, and as being a 2-lap course and there's 2 cattle grids, each rider will, after the first one they'll be fine. Once they know what it feels like. You'll remember back when we used to go over the Red Bridge, which was quite a bumpy ride as well, so it's part of the course.
Awesome. Which it's also like a very iconic part of the course, that Red Bridge. It was a very iconic part of the race.
Yeah, would never say never. We may bring it back in the future. We'll see.
Awesome. And on the run, just basically pace yourself. Are we running up Gun Road again?
Oh no. Okay. So you weren't here last year, were you, Fed? No. So it's the 2-lap course. You'll head out in a similar way to when you did that Gun Road course, but you'll turn around at Beacon Point, and at that point you run up a very short but steep hill, and you'll be on Beacon Point Road, and you'll run along the footpath. So it's a long straight footpath back, and then looping back into town. So I think if last year's anything to go by, just keep hydrated. And try and take on as much liquid as you can before you get onto that run course, because there's not a lot of shelter on it. And saying that, there's some awesome support out there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are awesome tips both for the race and to do after the race or before, depending on how much time the person that is racing has on their schedule. But definitely worth checking out, and like a very, very cool place to do. Like if you're looking to do a destination race, this is probably top of the list, because it doesn't get any better. From the course, the people, the scenery, it's just an epic race, and it's getting better as the years go by. And this being the 20th anniversary, we can only hope what the 40th anniversary is gonna be like. Hopefully I'll be racing still, but you never know. Probably a lot slower, but yeah.
So what are your hopes for the race this year, Fed? Are you gunning for a PB, or are you just here to enjoy it, or what's your goal?
I'm obviously, I want to push myself, and I push myself every single race that I do. Fitness wise, I'm not as fit as I should be to be aiming for a PB. However, I'm still gonna see what happens on race day, and just enjoy, push myself, and if I gave it my all at the end of the day, I will be a happy man. So that's like a very vague but honest answer.
Yeah, amazing. Oh,
Mm.
cool. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you here.
Yeah,
Not long
it'll
to go.
no long to go.
Yeah.
No long to go.
Yeah.
Need to get the bike to the bike shop so that everything's okay and smooth. And
Yeah.
then probably try to adapt a little bit my sleep cycle so that it's easier for me to wake up when I get there. Which
Yeah.
it's not that big of a problem going from here over there. It's the coming back.
Coming
That's
back. Yeah.
the whole system. But that's a happy problem.
Yeah, exactly. Are you able to spend any time when you're over here, or are you just here for a few days?
No, I'm gonna be there for like 2 weeks. So
Are,
so
are you
thought
racing in Taupo?
no. I'm
No?
just
But-
I thought about it, but no, I'm staying in Wanaka for the entire trip and just enjoying it and seeing the sights and cycling the roads and running the trails and just make it a bit of a Wanaka vacation slash race slash everything.
Yeah. It's actually the perfect time of year to visit Wanaka. I think, December, January is always so busy and the weather is less settled. And just getting into the, mid to end Feb and early March, it's just stunning here. And we tend to have these beautiful evenings when it's actually the hottest part of the day.
Mm.
And that's where all my family are now, down having dinner at the beach,
Oh, perfect.
having a swim. Yeah.
Well, we're not gonna keep you talking to me that much. We're gonna let you go and have dinner and a swim with your family so that you can enjoy the Wanaka sunset and the warm weather. But before we go, where can people follow the race? What's the best place to get news about the race? Probably Instagram would be the best option.
Yeah, so we've got lots going on Instagram and Facebook. You can download the Challenge Wanaka app as well from the App Store, and that will have results on race day plus all that info will push notifications out via that as well. So yeah, download the app and get on the socials and see what it's all about. And if you're not coming this year, we hope to see you next year.
Absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
thank you very much, Jane. We'll be sure to tag everything in the show notes for our viewers and listeners to check along, and hopefully they can follow my race. And fingers crossed, it doesn't go too bad, so that I can be proud of it. But either way, a bad race in Wanaka, it's still a solid day because you are in Wanaka. So
Exactly. And you're still out there doing it.
absolutely. Well, thank you very much for your time, Jane, and I'll see you soon. I'll see you very soon.
Yeah, can't wait. Thanks, Fed.
Awesome. Thank you.